проектите за рамномерен регионален развој преку поддршката на локалната самоуправа, но и за улогата на дијаспората за развојот на локалната економија. Ги поканувам панелистите и модераторот да ги заземат своите места.
Почитувани присутни, почитувани говорници, добре дојдовте на денешната панел дискусија на тема рамномерен регионален и локален развој и придобивки од новиот систем за субвенции во земјоделството. Денеска имаме чест на оваа панел дискусија да имаме 4.
We have the honor to have 4 speakers today in this panel. I wish to announce them and wish them welcome to the Minister of Agriculture, Water Economy and Forestry, the Minister of Local Self-Government, Mr. Istopenov. Welcome to you too. The Minister without the department responsible for the diaspora, Mr. Jemel Chupi, welcome. And Ms. Lencha Nikolovska, an owner of Agro Team and active follower of state policies in the area of agriculture. This panel discussion will be started with the novelties we'll hear about in the area of Agriculture and Rural Development. We'll hear from Mr. Nikolovsky first. Mr. Minister, in 2022, we started creating the greatest ever farming reform that should be starting with its application this year. So what are the benefits of the new subsidies model and all the changes made in the rural development program? Thank you. Today, taking the role of the moderator of this discussion, since you are familiarized and have all the information. Welcome to all the attendees. If something can be named a reform in the real sense of the word, is the reform in the area of agriculture and the key programs for direct payment to rural development, together with farmers in more than 50 meetings in the course of last year. Nowadays, we have a coordinated reform that is done for the first time after 15 years that will produce results, I believe. What is the reform? We are moving from one system where we had very many areas of subsidies, and we could hear about the dissatisfaction about the pace of payment of subsidies after 2 to 5 years. Today, we cleared the matters, and we have a model where 30% of subsidies will be paid as advance payment, that is to say, beforehand in the course of the year, and they are linked to the European measure to maintain arable areas, agricultural areas as arable areas, and 24 to 25 crops that are significant to us in terms of farming will be paid for, and we wrap up the entire support of 100%. We have basic subsidy and additional subsidy. Basic subsidy is for all the crops, and the additional one is for 24, 25 different crops. We have an increased control and request for increased standards through the cross-related rules of procedure. Will be insisting on as high standards as possible by farmers. And the essence is that this new model is tied to production itself, to know what we're producing, and we will have to prove the production made to be able to obtain the total amount of 100% of subsidies, which wasn't the case before. And I think that this is a bold reform that is acceptable and accepted by the farmers, and this is the greatest novelty as to the program for rural development. We have allocation and singling out of the real farmers registered under the law on farming and pension and disability insurance, and the ones that are real farmers that find their subsistence from farming. And throughout the year, there's going to be an open call for a business plan where they will apply for what they need to obtain a grant amounting to 10,000 euro. And we pay special attention to livestock breeding, where we will have sheep, goats, and milking cows. And we fund through subsidies where we have production of meat and milk, and we will reduce all the irregularities and reduce the grain economy. We encourage domestic production, agreed production. We've proven that with the sunflower, where we doubled and tripled the production through many other pilot measures and projects. The advance payment as a pilot project was performed this year as well. In terms of fruit growers, and we're not talking about some idea, but a new reform that will increase domestic production and encourage our domestic production facilities. And we see the crisis as an opportunity. The Russian aggression was seen as an opportunity. The intervention fund was introduced last year as one of the rare countries in the region supporting certain significant sectors through intervention measures in terms of artificial fertilizers, and we have 100 new boutique family wineries. We have record production of wine amounting to 60 million euro, and we've accomplished in spite of the new challenges, record prices both of sunflower, oat, and wheat, let alone tobacco, where we are breaking all possible records, and we're expecting inflow of currency from the exports of tobacco. We have the latest program about the small producers, grants of 10,000 euro for the first time ever to use the privileges of the sales threshold, and the goal is to create final products. We would wish to see 2,000 new small producers to sell from their thresholds, from their farms, and for start-up distilleries for the first time ever this year, and small producers, and all the other measures through the Rural Development Program that cover fully and intended for young people and women. So this is the basis of the new reform. In addition, today we are discussing the negotiations with the EU and alignment of our farming sector with the standards of the EU. And finally, this year, we have the procedures for the 3 sales and purchasing centers that have been discussed for a lot of time now. A major platform in Skopje, agro platform, then a sales buyout center in Resen, Skopje and Strumica. Thank you. Right on time. Yes, the retrospection of events is always a good way to show where we were and what we've accomplished in the meantime, and time is always short to share all the activities taking place through the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Water Economy, Water Management. Normally, this is one of the more complex ministries, and all of these successes are to be credited to the ministry, but also all the other stakeholders. I can see them here in the audience. I wish to welcome the MPs from Macedonian Parliament and all officials from institutions working for the agricultural sector. Then we'll move on with the next topic with the Minister of Local Self-Government, Mr. Penov. The Ministry of Local Self-Government is responsible for the implementation of even local development policies, and these are part of the policies of the Ministry of Local Self-Government, Ministry of Agriculture, the Program for Local Development, Ministry of Culture, and so on and so forth. You've been in this position for 3 months, more or less, and what we could see from the media, we can see that you're quite active, and you have regular meetings with mayors, and probably you are firstly informed about their issues and their expectations from the government in terms of assistance. The Ministry of Local Self-Government, through its budget, that is to say the state budget, within the program for even regional development, funds projects for the development of planning regions. So we would wish to hear what has been done with regard to this. When we are talking about regional development, it's important to mention that in the Republic of North Macedonia, it's been fully decentralized. The ministries, the government, the Bureau for Regional Development are funding, selecting and implementing projects, and municipalities and planning regions do that through their mayors. What is specific of 2022? In 2022, although it was a crisis energy year and economic crisis years, the funds for equal development, regional development, have been on the rise. The basic assessment that can be made is that all of the funds were fully utilized in 2022. And we are especially happy for the fact that all the municipalities in the Republic of North Macedonia have received at least one project each. In 2022, 215 projects were implemented, of which greatest investment was made in utility infrastructure, communal infrastructure. But what I wish to mark especially for 2022 is the renovation of the fleets of firefighting departments, especially in northeast, east and southeast and Varda regions, where almost every municipality received at least one firefighting vehicle. With these funds, we tried to raise the level, the technological level, through the procurement of utility equipment, primarily vehicles, in 19 municipalities in Macedonia. What we are preparing for 2023 is we will try to take a different approach in the implementation of projects. In 2022 and even in 2023, just like in previous years, we'll continue to cooperate with the EU and their RIPA funds, with UNDP, where we're working on strengthening the capacity of municipalities, and particularly in 2022, when due to the assessment that the administrative capacity of municipalities was low, we drafted 60 technical documentations for 48 municipalities where they can apply for EU and other funds. And let me underline the collaboration with USAID, with which we've been working on financial decentralization, where remarkable results have been achieved, where we had the greatest lag back as a country and as municipalities. And now we can be proud of the fact that, assisted by USAID, we have municipalities with 100% records of facilities and entities to be taxed with property tax, as is the municipality of Kavadarci. In 2023, we will do our best through the selection of projects of greater regional significance. And together with the Swiss government, we decided to have the cardiology clinic in Ohrid reconstructed due to its importance for the city of Ohrid. Then the Institute of Nephrology and Dialysis in Struga, full reconstruction. Then the Institute of Lung Diseases in Oteshevo. In George Petrov, we will have a home, actually a school, reconstructed into a home for people with severe diseases for their rehabilitation. In Kavadarci, we'll be resolving the issue of stray dogs through a regional center. In Radovish, Konče and Bosilovo, we are having photovoltaics installed on the roofings of public institutions. In Berovo, we will have the child resort and reconstructed and transformation into an elderly home, then we will provide communal equipment at a high level for municipalities, and we'll try to resolve the issue with ambulance vehicles, especially in smaller townships. I can see my time is running. Yes, thank you for your presentation. All of these figures we heard, those over 200 implemented projects speak in favor of precisely this even regional development, and also all your funds were utilized by the beneficiaries, and the fact that the symbiosis between central and local government has to remain in focus. Thank you for your presentation and for sharing your rather ambitious plans for 2023. I wish you great success in their implementation. We'll move on now with Minister Chupi. In the previous period, you had rather intense work to create collaboration between state institutions and organizations, finally resulting in the so-called diaspora centers. So how are these centers going to affect local and regional development in North Macedonia? Good day to you all. Thank you for your question.
Respected colleagues, ministers, respected representatives of institutions, dear guests, thank you for your presence here today. I hope that today's conference is not going to be used only as a momentum to brag of what we have achieved last year, but it will be a direction for creating and stimulating novelties in order to improve the equal regional and local development of our country. I would like to open my discussion with two sentences that need to be interconnected and are related to the diaspora. The first is, the migration is the deepest wound of our people. As a consequence of this, we are facing the so-called flow of brains or intellectual migration and getting old of the existing scientific and professional frame and staff. The other sentence that is interconnected is that the diaspora is precious as the homeland itself. In this case, I am convinced that the diaspora is an important segment and a strategic priority for both the government of the Republic of North Macedonia, proved through creation and everyday implementation of the national strategy for cooperation with the diaspora. Namely, the 1 year dedication as a minister and work as a minister in the government, and my past experience gives me the right to think that the best way to deal with these dilemmas and problems or issues is through common and coordinated institutional efforts. In that direction, for the conference today, we would not be able to discuss the regional and local development without the systematic cooperation between the state, government institutions and agencies, scientific institutions, local self-government units and municipalities, international organizations, non-governmental organizations, associations from the diaspora, and individuals, intellectuals, and businessmen from the country and from abroad. On the contrary, if we do not have this type of cooperation, we would inevitably face economic stagnation, equally on a national and local level. In that direction, I would like to point out the activities of my cabinet that, regardless of the crisis challenges, we gave our best and got the best outcomes. So, through systemic implementation of the national strategy for cooperation with the diaspora and the action plan from it, we have started with the implementation of the project, opening offices for diaspora in 23 municipalities. As a reminder, these offices have been intended to be a connector with the diaspora for the people that are coming in their homeland, to provide additional information to them, directions, and better conditions by the government. What I believe is important, and I would like to ask for one more minute, is the part when we are talking about this important project in which my cabinet had organized a training for the activities in the future and strengthening the capacities of all the staff that were working together with the IOM and the Ministry of Information Society and Administration. What is very important for today's conference is that additionally, this agreement will be an institutional frame where through system methodology for mapping of the scientific and economic diaspora for every municipality will be having the activities further on. Why this is important? The mapping of the economic diaspora is going to contribute for identifying the business community that is comprised of important entrepreneurs that are important for the whole territory of the country and on both national and local level, and this will contribute for the local development. As a conclusion, I am convinced that this transparent manner of creative adjustment to the services of our diaspora is the only way, the only manner to get closer to the institutions of the citizens that are from the diaspora. Thus, we will return the trust into the state of the diaspora. Thank you, Minister. I'm not going to say anything more than that I fully agree with you. If we want good benefits in every field, we need cooperation of the state with the people that are abroad, with our citizens abroad, and I fully support your approach for the centers. They need to inform our citizens abroad what is happening in the homeland, and thus we will show the diaspora that somebody is thinking and taking care of them in their homeland. We will go to our only lady here on this panel discussion, Lenci Nicolovska. As I said, she's actively following and monitoring all the agricultural policies in the country. She will be our best speaker for the conditions in the agri industry, because you have communication, cooperation with the businessmen in this area. You have had different events organized on different topics. The Minister Nikolovsky discussed some of them. Do you think this is a good thing to start now with the implementation, and whether the agriculture workers are going to be satisfied with how the finances are distributed in this sector? Thank you for the question and the opportunity to state my opinion and thus assist the government's work. Since we're talking about the agriculture year of this government, I can say that past year we have continued with the good agricultural policies from 7 years ago, and the new model of subsidizing and the other measures by the government are the announcement for the work in the next year in the Macedonian agricultural sector and harmonization with the EU sector. We have approached towards stabilization of this sector. We have undertaken measures that were very important. The most important, we have witnessed that millions of euros were invested in irrigation systems. The land was given in the hands of the real agricultural workers. Cooperation of the agricultural workers is very important, and this is what we insist on. And the solution of problems is very important, especially in crises such as the COVID pandemics and the war in Ukraine. The agriculture production is one of the strategic branches in the country, and this is mentioned and emphasized all the time. Open and cooperative agricultural policies are very important, but they're not always understood in a correct manner, meaning that not everybody can see the final outcome. Therefore, I consider that we need to those going into following the needs of every person or every entity, but we need to take into consideration the needs of the country. The new model of the EU that is going to be useful for our country does not necessarily mean that it is going to be the same model that the other EU countries have. About 40% of the finances are dedicated to the agricultural sector. In the last period of 4 years, fantastic amount of money was dedicated for the subsidies in the agriculture sector. Through a responsible production, forcing of this type of production, supporting the youth, supporting the women, rural payments, insisting on cooperation of the agricultural workers should be one of the preconditions for getting the subsidies. And this was one of the criticisms that we have faced in the past year, that the subsidies do not have development component. With the new model of subsidizing, we are sending another important message, that is distribution between or division between real agricultural workers or farmers, the ones that live from farming and the ones that have farming as a secondary activity. The first group is more interested in investing in the agriculture and have profit from this. This kind of farmers are very important for the state, because we will have increased production of domestic food and products. We will have more export, and in this process, of course, there will be some that are not going to be content, but I will say that there will be more of those that will be not well informed. These are the people that are meeting every new year or every novelty with a resistance. My opinion is that the state or the administration is a step forward in the harmonization of the common agricultural policy. Part of the responsibility lies in the farmers. You know, they are very difficult to accept new changes or novelties. They even have mistrust between themselves. We are aware that in every developed country, the farmers are not doing things on their own. They are members of associations or any other kind of common taking of activities. Their activities might be misused and used for manipulation with the farmers. Therefore, I consider that the Ministry of Agriculture, together with the measures brought, needs to find a way through campaigns, maybe more tribunes with the citizens, to come closer to the citizens and explain these measures to the citizens. We're talking about a huge number of 200,000 farming families that are in any way related to the agricultural production, and therefore it is very important to have the right information brought to them. Finally, my response to your question, we see a positive trend in the last year. A lot of people and companies that were not dealing with farming so far are starting to invest in farming. And these are often young people, which is very encouraging, because the policy of the EU is to make this sector younger. We are talking about measures undertaking novelties, digitalization in the farming industry or agriculture industry, and other positive measures of the government. Therefore, we can reduce the import in the dependence. We can increase the funds that we're receiving. I will mention the opportunity for applying for the NATO tenders in the Ministry of Defense, the Center for Supporting of Companies, which is doing serious work. Finally, Mr. Bachevsky, we are expecting the calls for the IPART 3. A large interest has been shown here. Through Agro Team, we are dealing a lot with this topic. We are educating and helping, assisting the new investors in the sector, and we are hoping that we will be leaders in the utilization of IPART 3, as was the case with IPART 2. Thank you. Thank you, Lenche. Of course, informing the farmers on the novelties that are quite a bit in the last years is really important, and all the state institutions, especially the institutions related to the agricultural sector, should pay more attention to the informing, because this will be helping towards the growth. Thank you for your input for the agricultural sector, for the informing. We can learn a lot from each other, and I believe that with common cooperation we will improve our performances. Finally, at the end of your statement, you have mentioned a topic that I would like to use to continue my conversation or the dialogue with Minister Nikolovsky. IPART 3 program as part of the pre-accession assistance for the Republic of North Macedonia. We are the leaders in the region with 1,300, over 1,300 signed agreements. What is the most significant is that the country is receiving a very increased budget, 62% higher than previously. So, having in mind what Lenche posed and the increased interest for the IPART 3 by the applicants, we would be very glad and thankful to hear what are the benefits of the IPART 3 program. Thank you. I would like to greet the MPs, the deputy ministers, representatives of institutions, of embassies, our partners, the chambers. Thank you for the patience. I consider there will be useful information, especially with regards to IPART. I would like to congratulate the agency, because with the common vision and mission, we made it possible for us to be leaders in several areas. First of all, we are leaders in the consolidation. We haven't done some things in this area, but it's good to hear. We are leaders in the region with regards to the export in the winery, before Serbia, Kosovo, Bosnia, the other countries in the region, and with regards to the utilization of the IPART programs. The first call for IPART was in 2017, and the trust of the farmers in the institutions was breached. Why? Because we were hearing about IPART, that some projects were refused or rejected. The people were not having very big trust in the IPART 1 program. But this IPART in 2022, we're finishing with 97% of concluded agreements or contracts, more than 2,000 agreements that were paid off out of the overall amount of 62 million euro that were available for us. Therefore, EU decided that North Macedonia is a leader in the region. Kosovo and Bosnia do not even have this IPART program. We would like to give them our experiences. We would like to transfer our experiences to them. 97 million euros should be the amount of the program. If we add the national co-financing and all the investments, by the users. That would be 210,000 million euro for the agricultural sector for the next 7 years. If we have used IPART 3 and we are leaders, I believe that with this experience we will be leaders in IPART 3, because we know the lessons, we learned the lessons, we have walked the road. We also have some novelties. You asked what are the novelties. You know that for the first time after the conclusion of the agreement, we do not need to have the whole investment and then wait for the return, but we can have an advancement payment in order for you to get into the implementation and realization of the investment. We will expect 4 new measures, that is rural public infrastructure for the municipalities. In the past 3-4 years, we have given support to the municipalities through the national program with 204 projects for road infrastructure, and all the other infrastructure, because without this there will be no rural development and no agricultural development. In the new IPART 3 we will have the opportunity not to lose these finances, but through this measure to give support to the municipality. This is the measure leader for the local action groups, the measure for the advisory local groups. This will come to the parliament for discussion. They will be able to use advisory services through the IPART 3 program. And what we're discussing today, this is the agroecological measures in the part of the climate adaptation of our agriculture sector and harmonization with the EU agricultural sector, organic production. I believe that we will have these measures in the next IPART program. We expect finalization of this procedure in the Macedonian Parliament and the other procedures as well. But it is a fact that the EC made a decision to give 62% increased budget to North Macedonia compared to the previous IPART. This means investments in equipment, increase of the production, of the processing, and we have new records for export of this industry. And these are only numbers and figures, but the proof for this is that there is no village, there is no settlement that does not have the IPART board. This is a success for all of us, all the stakeholders that are included in this process, because we're talking about non-reversible, non-returnable funds. We are all getting prepared for the new call for the IPART, and for the 3 measures we are going to put available 30 million euro. Therefore, we are getting ready for a big campaign that is going to reach every user and will inform all the others of the possibilities and opportunities that the IPART 3 program is offering.
Thank you, Minister. It is interesting that the IPART program was some kind of a taboo, and what can be summed up is that in the last 5 years we have excellent progress, and at the end of the day it is recognized by our partners, the European Commission, and they increased the budget by 62%. It is a great budget, 210 million euros, the overall value of the investments that will be made in the agriculture and rural sector. And this is a serious challenge for the beneficiaries, but also for the institutions, mostly in what you said during your presentation. Of course, the new measures today, we are speaking of equal regional development. It is always positive to speak of rural infrastructure that would be at disposal of the municipalities so that they can use the European funds for building roads, sewage, and other. This will be of great support for the municipalities and will be approved by them. Now we'll return to the municipalities with Minister Penov. In your previous presentation, you mentioned the priorities in 2022 and what are your plans for 2023. The past year was full of challenges. We saw that the economic and energy crisis was quite reflected on the central structures, but also on the local self-governments. To what degree did this energy and economic crisis impacted the development of the municipalities, and how can we increase their resilience in future, because their functioning and operation as a degree of immediate democracy influences directly the citizens and the services that should be delivered to them.
Кризата, особено
The military crisis in Ukraine that caused the economic and energy crisis had a grave impact over the municipalities and increased the costs and the budgets for financing of costs, especially regarding the energy supplies. The analysis prepared by the UNDP with data for the 9 months, it was said that there are effects, speaking of disastrous relation of the municipalities and disastrous behavior in crisis. In numbers, the costs for energy total in the municipalities in the 9 months of 2022 were increased by $1 billion. And this cost, they tried to compensate, probably natural, by decreasing the capital investments. But this billion was compensated by reducing the capital investments by almost a double, and they increased the debts for additional $800 million. And this shows a disastrous and irrational behavior towards the development of the municipality and towards the citizens. When speaking of the finance, I don't know if there's a third set of questions, no. The financial decentralization made in 2005 came from the idea that 70% of the incomes of the municipalities will come from the state, and 30% will be financed by the municipalities with their own instruments, the instruments that are at their disposal, but have a great potential to rise year by year and to turn this ratio for the benefit of their own incomes to be 70% without reducing the state ones to be 30%. 18 years after the decentralization, the ratio is the same. The state gives 70% and the municipalities give 30%. This says that the financial decentralization was not used. Not a step forward was made. And the greatest source of income is the property tax. It is not used sufficiently. It is considered that more than 70% of the facilities are not registered so that they can be properly taxed. And we even had cases in this period of enormous processes of legalization of objects, thousands of objects in each of the municipalities. They remained unregistered, and yet they went through the state administration. The utilities that the municipalities see as the most interesting source of income, when construction permit is requested, for example, have been the same for 20 years, and we can see around us that there are profitable facilities. We are not speaking of increasing or to take from socially vulnerable groups. However, the prices of apartments are rising and the utilities do not even finance the obligation that the municipality has for the facility, and these taxes are quite low. The prices of utility services, this is pure populism, very low prices that cannot cover the costs of the utility companies. And in these circumstances, salvation is asked from the state. Give us state money, give us the opportunity to borrow money while their own funds are not used. The next years, we will invest a lot of efforts to do something in that direction. I mentioned with the USAID, with the UNDP, the funds from the European Union, we're working on changing these ratios of accepting the instrument of financial decentralization as it is envisaged and according to its potential for development. Thank you. It is always good to hear this kind of reflection, especially regarding the management of local self-governments. Yes, it is true they were also part of the crisis, but they should cut down unproductive costs and without reducing the capital investments. Of course, there is the populism in the utility management, and absolutely there should be gradation in the collection of utilities, permits for construction, and of course something must be done. And I'm sure that in the next period, using your experience as a mayor of the city of Skopje, it is good to have goodwill and engagement of our international partners, and probably we will move in that direction. We are directed towards the European trends, the European values. It is good to use this know-how, the experience, and to make some significant steps and to improve the well-being of the municipalities. Minister Chupi, of course, the impact of the diaspora that is quite characteristic for all municipalities in the country. We're speaking of equal regional development, and we can freely say that the municipalities throughout the whole country are equally empty with this brain drain. And the most significant areas for cooperation with the diaspora are, of course, the investments that we would like to see happening as many as possible in many municipalities in our country. What is the impact of the diaspora over the investments and foreign exchange income? We constantly see comparisons with the countries from the region. All of them have their own diaspora throughout the world. So what is the contribution of the diaspora? Can you share something more about this? Thank you for your question. To speak of diaspora without underlining the investments or the incomes or the partnership, the public and private partnership is simply a waste of time. If during the first part of the discussion I focused on what we accomplished in this phase, I would like to describe several dimensions on the future plans. When speaking of foreign investments, I would like to emphasize that beside the fact that 13% of our population lives abroad, then we can be certain that this percentage is quite higher regarding the foreign exchange incomes and influxes. I would not like to make estimates in number because I'm not that kind of an economist, but I can say that with appropriate sectors we can make an analysis about the incomes from our diaspora. If we compare this to the countries in the region, following the data from the banks, we can see that the countries in the region have the similar percentage of migrants in the diaspora. And in our country, probably the incomes are much lower compared to Kosovo, to Albania, to Montenegro. On the other hand, if we already concluded that in the past years we faced a long economic crisis, we can also conclude that in the gravest moment for our people, exactly these incomes from the diaspora helped mostly because they assisted their families, their relatives, and helped them to face the crisis. These foreign exchange incomes are of particular importance for our country. On the other hand, we have no clear policy regarding the foreign exchange incomes and about the possibility for these incomes to be sent via official channels and to not face high taxations. What I would also like to underline is related to the Ministry of Economy, because very often there are questions regarding the investments. They're mostly focused on public-private partnerships, and in synergy with our screening process, the Ministry of Economy foresees a law that, among the other, will set up the rules and sanctions for those who misuse the processes of implementation of the public-private partnerships. But it will also give a new dimension of the diaspora so that it can be more serious when it comes to investments. And last but not least, last year I had the opportunity to witness the creation of businesses and business associations. This happened in Venice, in Italy, where one part of our diaspora organized an interesting event, and our diaspora and our economic community met the Italian economic community so that they can discuss and look into opportunities for cooperation and to connect the local governments for future cooperation. Tens of mayors had meetings with their Italian counterparts, and they spoke of the future and for the connection of the cities between Macedonia and Italy, and this would be a great motivation for cooperation. Yes, this is the role of the diaspora and of the local governments. And thank you for sharing the good experiences. Then why would we not have some good investments on the territory of North Macedonia? We will relate the diaspora in the next discussion with Lince, the diaspora, the investments, the regional development. In general, we can say what is the European Union doing regarding rural development. Out of those 386 billion euros you mentioned, 95 billions are directed at investments of the rural development. And in our conditions, something that is done through the EPERT program, we are speaking here about projects that will mean development of the rural areas, infrastructural projects that may be used by the local governments. But let us focus mostly on the investments in the rural development. What is the situation here at home, and how much can we include the diaspora in this story?
Thank you, Bachowski. I can say that the rural development is my favorite topic and challenge in the past years. Returning the life into the villages, but in a modern way, with all the conditions that the city population has, especially the modern technology utilization and use. We're talking about clean environment for living, freelancers working from home, pensioners that can improve the quality of life. This is all possible, and according to the analysis of AgroTeam, there is a large interest of the citizens for this. But if this is a project with a topic rural development, it has to be a modern project that will include several key institutions: Ministry of Agriculture, of course, Ministry of Transport and Communications, led by the Ministry of Local Self-Government, and supported by the European funds and the diaspora opportunities. To clarify, when you have good infrastructures in a village, you will have good living conditions. This means ambulance, internet, road infrastructure, water infrastructure and systems functioning. This will not be only regarding the logistics, but the focus is going to be turned from the cities to the villages. The people in this environment would be eager to live. They might fix some of the houses that they own from their parents, or they will use some of the pieces of the land that they own to start a new business. For all of them, the Ministry of Agriculture has already anticipated subsidies through the program for direct subventions and subsidies, but with additional subsidy from the government in money for each average family, let's put it this way, that would want to live in a village. This will enable decreasing of the pressure to the citizens. This on an annual level is not something huge, but the development can be huge. The activities of the government in the direction of equal regional development are going well through the funds in the rural areas and the financing of the rural areas. We have seen only 12.5 million euros invested in the rural areas, with attracting foreign investors or investors from the diaspora that are going to invest in processing facilities or cooperative relations. They can also use services of EPERT for the rural population. For me, it's very interesting to discuss the finalization processes in certain capacities or factories, because they will have bigger opportunities to placement of their products abroad. We know that the placement is the biggest problem of the farmers and in the agricultural sector in general. Also, the cooperation between the central and the local authorities is very important for the attraction of these funds. This is especially visible through the applications for the EPART. Part of the documentation, most of the documentation, is related to the central authorities and the municipalities. And in that direction, more activities by the local authorities can contribute towards improving the investment climate and attracting more EPERT funds. In this climate for work and business, we will be more certain, people will be more certain when they want to invest in certain businesses, and this will mean increased domestic food production. This was a good project. Teams from here that are going to prepare analysis for the free land parcels, announcements, EPERT administration. This needs to be present it to our people from the diaspora, just to give them an idea to where to invest. So the opportunities are indefinite, and we see the wish of the government to have more or better and bigger rural development. This is what is of our interest as citizens, and this is going to contribute towards our inclusion to the EU, to the period of 2027. This is the period until the EU is planning to invest in the agricultural sector. Thank you, Lencher. This is a very specific thing for Macedonia, which is considered a rural country, and the connection of where we need to direct the investments. The Minister of Diaspora and the Minister of Agriculture know what are the weak points. It's the placement of the agricultural products or the farming products. And we see that the biggest potential market for the products is the cooperation with our diaspora and finding placement through our active diaspora, which will be hugely approved by our producers, our farmers, and all included or involved in this so-called operation. We are done with the rounds for your addressings. If we have anyone from the public to raise a question, comment, suggestion, critic at the end of the day for any of our speakers, of our panelists, the floor is yours.
Повелете. Можеме?
Thank you, ministers. Minister Čupi, Director Bachevski, Minister Penov, and Ms. Nikolovska. My objective is not to raise a specific question for the results that you have achieved, but I would like to stress out at this panel discussion is that we really had a difficult year last year. It was a challenge for us and our country, which is a small country, in a direction of showing if we know and to what extent we know how to protect our agricultural production through implementation of certain measures that are scientifically supported. And this is my objective, to stress out that we have intensive cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture since the establishment of the faculty up to date. And I would like to say my gratitude for this cooperation with this minister. All the measures and recommendations and opinions that we're giving, we can see that they have been integrated through the participation and development of the national strategy, the 5th-year program. Maybe for the crisis in the past year was a tragical event. Maybe for us it was a different type of a challenge, which showed that we can, with all our power, increase the production, increase the surfaces that are under cultivation, and we're growing cultures that are strategically important for our country. The faculty was having a good cooperation with the ministry through the intervention fund. I hope that we will continue with this cooperation, and we will thus provide competitive production, and we will be able to protect our production and thus come closer to the EU in this way. Thank you. That was my point. Thank you. It is always good to hear when the scientific sphere has good cooperation with the public or with the state institutions. We hope that the condition in the Macedonian agricultural sector is going to be improving, not only this but the next years. Dear audience, dear panelists, I would like to thank you for your presence and for the participation at this panel for the equal regional and local development and benefits from the new system of subsidies in the agriculture. I would like to wish all of you a very good afternoon. Thank you.
Почитувани гости,
Distinguished guests, this panel completes the today conference, Year of New Opportunities. I hope that the fruitful discussions will provide good directions for or about how to see 2023 as an opportunity and to use the challenges in order to secure stability, security, better standard of living, better rule of law, better infrastructure, better conditions and services for the citizens, economic progress, social justice, rule of democracy, and better life according to European standards. Thank you.